let's get started. Let's see what we got on the transgender agenda for today. We're going to talk about the basics because makeup is not just the makeup, it's about your skin. And when it comes to planning a Halloween look, whether or not you're a super big fan of Halloween, just in general, it's good to know how to prepare for those things. So we'll talk a little bit about like planning and skin prep before we get more into eyebrow shaping and also contouring, which is always a huge question people have about gender affirming makeup. And then lastly, how do we make our makeup actually last throughout the night? Because we put in all this work. We want it to stay on. Let's get into the basics. And if anybody has questions while we're talking, feel free to send them into the Q&A. Just like Lena had said, we'll get to those whenever we get the chance to. But yeah, on the next slide, it's just going to be the basics. And then let's go to the next one after this. So something that I didn't realize until a little too late in my life is the value of planning and knowing what we're going to do. So even if you don't have Halloween plans necessarily, if you want to try doing a look you've never done before, whether that's dressing up in a certain costume or maybe you're into cosplay and you want to explore your gender that way just by being somebody else, it's a really good idea to put together a mood board so that you can visualize the kind of vibe or character you want to emulate. Think about what you're going to do with your hair and, of course, your makeup and what you'll be wearing before you go out so that you're not stressing out the day of. Sometimes when we're stressing and rushing through what we're doing, we might not end up with a result we really love. And when it comes to like exploring our gender, we want to try to set ourselves up for success and give ourselves the time and the room to really play around before we show it off to everybody. Do a little dress rehearsal. By that, I mean, again, it's another step of preparing, right? If you're trying to do a look for a character or costume you've never done before, there are so many good tutorials out there on the worldwide interwebs that you can look up and watch and practice along with. So I really recommend you practice your look at least one time. Wear everything, put your hair up the way you're thinking, put on your costume, try on the makeup, and see how you like it. And that way you can really start to notice, okay, so I like the way I did my eyebrows here, but there's something maybe about the lip color I chose that is making me feel a little uncomfortable or dysphoric. And that way, when you are getting ready for realsies, you'll know what you need to adjust so that you feel comfortable and confident on your night out. And again, like before we do makeup, makeup goes on top of our skin. The state of your skin will dictate how your makeup will come out looking. Whether you're oily or dry, make sure you use some kind of lightweight moisturizer or face cream. You could even use a face primer if you get super oily on the nose, for example, and you don't want your makeup to just disappear within the next hour. That's a good idea to put that on before we start anything. There's nothing scarier than an unprepped canvas. It makes such a big difference to just tend to the skin before we even start thinking about the makeup. And then let's see what's next on the next slide. These are just some product recommendations that I have. On the left side, it's more for oily, normal skin. On the right side, it's better for dry or normal. If you are somebody who doesn't really lean super oily or super dry, you can honestly use anything from this list. But at the bare minimum, again, just a moisturizer before you do face makeup makes such a big difference. And then let's get into the next thing. Let's talk about eyebrows because the eyes are the windows to the soul and the eyebrows are curtains or whatever. So you want them to be good. You want them to be on points. How do we do that? If we're trying to feminize or masculinize our features, whatever that means to you, the next slide will tell us the differences between two different kind of styles. And depending on what you're going for, think of it more of like masculinization, quote unquote, is going to be about making your features more sharp, less kind of curved, and less diagonally like going upwards. So with more masculine eyebrows, they might be lower. You might have a straighter kind of shape. They might be more bushy or uneven. And it's going to be closer in to the nose bridge, closer to your eyes as well. And it's not really going to taper as much. If you're going for a more like feminine look where you want to soften your features, those kinds of eyebrows will be more shapely. Like you can see in the right side of this photo, right? We have a more defined kind of arch throughout the eyebrow. The arch, which is the tallest part of the brow, will be a little bit higher. And then you want to have it, you can make it look more clean. You can do that with tweezing your brow hairs to make the shape stand out more. Or if you don't like tweezing or you don't really love hair removal, you can use like a concealer. And that way you can cover up some of the extra hairs and almost make your eyebrows look a little bit thinner. And your brows will be a little bit further from the nose here, and they will thin out more towards the tail, just to make them even more shapely that way. You'll see the kind of eyebrows that I did for my look. I did go for a more like bushy brow look, nothing too precise or nothing too crispy. I feel like that really brings out the more like masculine qualities. But of course, this is something that is different from person to person. So whatever it is you feel comfortable with, and also what works best with what you're working with naturally, like your actual eyebrow hairs and the shape you have already, find a happy medium, play around with it, play around with it. And then on the next slide, we're going to be talking, this is just kind of a more in-depth, like step by step. For masculinization, you could go darker than you think you need to. That way it kind of creates the illusion of fuller brows. And again, straighten out that brow shape. If you naturally have a very curved or arched eyebrow, fill in that area so that it looks more straight. And then fill them in thicker or past where your hairs naturally grow. And then you can also use just a tinted eyebrow gel, or some people will just use like a black mascara to emphasize your brow hairs. And then bonus tip, you can use a mascara for your little mustache, your little chin hairs, and highlight them that way as well. And I like to give the tip of like looking at your family members. If you want to figure out how to make your features go more masculine or feminine, just look at the people who already share features with you and use them as inspiration, because you're going to be working more with what you got rather than fighting your natural features that way. But it's all about playing around. It's all about experimentation. Don't be scared to play because makeup comes off very easily. All right, and then the next slide. These are just some brow recommendations. There's a lot of ways you can go with what you use. I think the easiest one is going to be a brow gel or a brow mascara. If you want more precision, I'd recommend a thin pencil or a brow pen. And if you want like a softer look, you don't want it to look too exact or too crispy, that's what brow powders are great for too. And I want to ask Shanti, do you have any preferences for the kind of brow products you personally like?
Okay, so I used to just use like a black, super thin, like felt tip liner, but then after a while, I started using the Fenty the brow brush, actually. Or actually, no, the Sephora specific, like tiny, tiny brow brush. It's like
Mm-hmm.
from the brand and it's very thin, and I'm able to get like the super sharp looking brows. Yes.
Yeah, so I know that's going to be really similar to the brow pencil that's on the very right of this slide. It's nice that it has a little brush or spoolie
Mhm.
on the end of it, just in case you fill in your eyebrows and you go a little bit too hard, just blend it out and soften it out. It's, I think, the most versatile brow product. And again, bonus tip, you can use your brow pencil to draw in facial hair as well. Lots of things you can do with brow products. Love them. So let's check out contouring on the next slide. So we kind of address the eyebrows. What about contouring? This is going to be probably the most transformative step you can take when it comes to doing your makeup, because the point of it that we will see on the slide after this, the point of contouring is to bring out your facial structure. So depending on whether we're trying to add a little bit more definition and a more chiseled look, like you can see on the left side of this image, right? The masculine contour, or we want to soften our face if we already naturally have a lot of angular features. The placement of our contour makes such a big difference. Sometimes people use bronzer and contour interchangeably, but it's important to know contour is more supposed to emulate the shadows. The color of a contour product will lean more almost like a gray tone, but a bronzer is meant to add color to the face as if you've been out in the sun. So that's going to lean more warm or almost like orangey. It's good to use both to make it look the most natural. But if you want to just see how far you can push it with your makeup, try using a contour product and placing it very strategically on these specific areas around the brow bone and the inner eye. You can tell, right, on the feminine side, it's a lot more open and a lot more bright. They used a highlighting shade in that picture, so something that's lighter than your skin that will pull those features forward and they make your eyes look more open. But if you want it to be more masculine and kind of create the look of a lower brow bone and something like a make your eyes look more sunken in, you'll actually add more contour on the eyes there. And as well as the forehead, if you want it to look more rounded, that's what the feminine side is kind of doing. But the masculine side is actually adding more like dimension onto the forehead, where this top part of our brow bone is protruding further out because we're using a lighter highlighting shade. But then around that, adding in kind of these like angles with the contour. And of course, along the cheekbone, you can kind of see what I've done today, where I followed my cheekbone. And instead of just stopping here, which is what I would normally do for a more feminine look, I brought that downwards to make my cheeks look more sunken in. Or you could do the opposite. You could just follow underneath that cheekbone and then don't take it closer to the chin if you want to just define the cheeks without making it look more sunken in that way, as well as the jawline. I really emphasize the jawline by going underneath my jaw. I already naturally have a more angular jaw, but if you want to soften the angle, you'd go on top and you'd blend out that contour, and you can even go down the neck, which is what I did here. Kind of just to bring out the appearance of an Adam's apple or create one if you don't have one, but that's optional. That's if you really want to, get into the fantasy. And I have some product recommendations on the next slide, just in case you're like, I don't know where to start. What do I need? You don't need all of these. These are just some options that you can find either in store or online, and this will vary throughout the price range as well. You don't need to spend a bajillion dollars on makeup to get the desired effect. You just need to learn how to work with each product. If you have drier skin, try a cream or a liquid. If you have oilier skin, you might prefer a powder. So see what you got near you, whatever's accessible to you, and really play around with the product. Sometimes if we're starting out with makeup, if we've never done a technique, and if we use a product that just like does not work for our skin, maybe the color is off, or maybe it's too dry or too oily, that can make us feel like we're doing something wrong. But I promise you, there is a product out there for you. It's just a lot of trial and error. These are just some that I've tried and that I know work really well and would wholeheartedly recommend to y'all. But take a picture, like screenshot if you need to. These are products I've talked about before as well. And yeah, let's go to the next one. Okay, I see a question. Someone said, I can't wink with both eyes, so how do I close both eyes to do them? That is a really good question. So I'm hearing that you're wondering, how can I do my eye makeup if I need my eyes to see, basically? So what I recommend, I have a mirror like this. I know it's kind of blurry. This is like an angled mirror. So I can adjust the angle. I don't have to hold it. It stands on its own. In order to be able to see your entire eyelid when you're doing your makeup, but like not closing your eyes, because then you won't be able to see what you're doing, angle your mirror really, really far down. Like I'm looking almost completely straight down, but I can still see my entire eyelid. If you're doing your makeup with your mirror just like parallel, you're missing some of that eyelid space there. So play around with the angle. And I recommend this not just for eye makeup, but for every step of your makeup routine because our face is 3D. It's gonna look different from certain angles because we have some curves in some places. Some areas are more flat, but get a good look at what you're doing from afar too. You might have a little hand mirror you like, and that's great and all, but every now and then, take a step back. That way you can see the color and you can see how even everything is. But yeah, hopefully that's helpful. And then as for this last slide, we talked about eyebrows, we talked about contouring. It might take us a good amount of time to do these things. We want to make sure that stays. Otherwise, all that hard work is just going to melt off your face. So what I recommend is setting any liquids and cream products with a powder. If you have dry skin and you've kind of been avoiding powder because maybe you're scared it might be too dry for you, look for the kinds that are almost called like HD powders. These are finely milled. It's not going to be so dry that's just going to suck all the moisture out your skin, but it is going to prevent those cream and liquid makeup products from sliding around or being like easily rubbed off throughout the day. And if you are oily, powder is non-negotiable. The oil that we produce comes from within our skin. It's going to break apart our makeup because makeup just sits on top. So that's why it's really, really important. Set everything. Use a fluffy big brush. You don't have to pack it on, but just put a little bit of powder on top. And then if you're like, okay, I put powder on, and now I look super dry, like the Sahara, follow it up with a setting spray. A setting spray will help to melt together the powders and liquids and creams, so it'll look more skin-like. And a lot of setting sprays will also elongate the wear of your makeup, especially if you look for a fixing spray. If we're doing Halloween makeup, if you, let's say you're going to Spirit Halloween and you're getting like a white grease paint to use as your base, those are oily. Those are real oily. Definitely set them with a powder, but also set them with a fixing spray after you powder. It's really going to ensure that your makeup is transfer resistant. Some of them even make your makeup waterproof or help to really mattify and prevent your face from getting oily throughout the night. I love to use all of these in combination with each other to get the longest wearing makeup, especially if you're going out and you're gonna be out all night long partying, some Halloween party, showing off your cute look. This is how you make it stay on. Does anyone have any questions or like anything I didn't touch upon yet? After this, we're gonna go into the demo that Shanti is gonna be showing us for her kind of vampire look. But if you don't have any questions for now, we could always go back to it. Just let me know. Yeah, let's get into the demo. Are you ready, Shanti?
I think I am ready. Yeah.
I'm so excited to see what you can do.
Well, so do y'all want me to stop the share now and I can spotlight you? Got you. So I will give you the spotlight. And Jay, do you want to be co-spotlit or?
Mm, sure.
Okay, cool. There we go.
Yes. Yes. Take it away, Shanti, and I will answer any questions that might come up while you're doing the demo.
Okay, awesome. So, hi again, I'm Shanti. I'm gonna be starting off with some feminizing makeup techniques. To start, I always use this color corrector. I use a peach tone to cancel out any of the blue of any facial hair and eye bags that any like blue undertones that I might have from that. So usually I start with that after I've done my primer and make sure all the skin prep to start my makeup. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start kind of painting this on. And I like to go down kind of along where the facial hair would grow and just kind of, make sure to really get in there because that blue will come out in any type of like cool tone lighting. So you just really want to like cancel that out as much as possible. Same thing with like the eye bags. I feel like it really brings you to life if you add a warm tone to that. So this is what I'm starting off as.
Do you have any tips on how we choose which color corrector is best for us?
Yeah, so if you have more like of a deeper like blue shade or really thick, you know, facial hair that you're really trying to hide, you want to go more orange because that will cancel out the blue undertones and kind of like veiny look that the facial hair gives you. But since my facial hair doesn't grow in too thick, I like to use like a peach one. There's a couple other ones we have as well as green color corrector to cancel out any red that you might have in your skin that you want to hide. And there's a whole map of the color correction guides and, working with different tones accessible online. So if you ever have any questions like about like what specific things you want to mask, I say definitely either ask somebody at a makeup shop who can talk to you directly about how to specifically hide those, or you can look it up online. But yeah, so since I have that painted on, what I'm gonna do is just like blend it out with my finger to kind of give it more of a natural set. And I do that on the eye bags and also like the inner corners as well as the facial hair region. And you could probably see it gives like a very warm kind of like nearly orange tone. And for some people, they can get away with doing only the color corrector as a foundation, but for me specifically, and my personal preference is that I don't like to have just a little bit, even a little bit of noticeable warmth on my skin in these specific areas because being trans and kind of, navigating through the world through this modern situation can be a little scary. So what I like to do is I like to go in with the foundation. I just feel like a very thin layer like that. So this is just me setting my base. I like to kind of start off with the skin so that I can go in with like eyeshadow, any of that afterwards. So I like to cover the facial hair region as well.
Interesting because I feel like for me, sometimes I like to do my eye makeup first. If I'm doing something that requires a lot of like eyeshadow, or if I want to be able to erase mistakes without messing up the rest of my makeup, that's one way to do it. But there's no wrong way, there's no, correct order per se. It all depends on your preference and the kind of look you're doing. But yeah, I love to see how other people do their makeup. It's so interesting.
Did you want me to elaborate on why I like to do the foundation first? Okay, so I like kind of, I feel like eyeshadow rubs off more easily than foundation does. And just the way that I do my makeup, because like I like to basically go in skin, eyes, and then to cut it or to finalize it, I'll do like the contour because I tend to touch my face a lot. So I don't want to set basically a look that has kind of like runny. So I'll do that as the last step before. And I also feel like the eyeshadow kind of grasps on a little better if you do like a foundation first. That's just my experience and how I've been doing it though, but to each their own.
No, that makes sense. I also have an issue with just like rubbing, like setting my hand on my face while I'm doing my eye makeup.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes I notice too, if I have foundation on already and I'm really concentrating on my eye makeup, it will crease before I'm even done with everything else. So again, figure out what works for you, play around with the order, and you'll see what makes the most sense.
Yeah, I just tend to like not move my face like at all while I'm doing it. I'm literally in the mirror
Wow.
going on, I'm just like,
Ah, that's very admirable because I'm always making the wildest faces trying to really get in there.
yeah. So after I've kind of like set the foundation and stuff, I blend it out with a very like thick kind of like foundation brush to just kind of like soften it a little bit and make sure it's like really on there. And I think the most important thing towards like feminizing makeup and maybe any kind of makeup at all is definitely like blending and making sure that it's like really on there. But yeah, so this is my base. I feel like it definitely like flattened, the surfaces, with the facial hair area, it's a lot like warmer now. And my eye bags don't look as insane as they did before. Yeah, so secondly, I'm gonna go into the brows. So what I like to do with the brows is definitely try to drag them up as much as possible. I usually start by thinning my brows to give it more of a like in terms like feminine look, just because I personally like looking like a cartoon character. Yeah, I don't know. So I think, when you think of a lot of trans femmes' journey and the way they present, a lot of them will say that they like choose a cartoon character to kind of model their makeup as and stuff like that. I don't have a specific one, but I just like looking like just a cartoon in general. But I guess it'd be like Lola from like Shark Tale or something.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
super arch brows, like
Diva, yes.
eyeshadow, like very red lips, very like traditional. Yeah, okay, so I thin out my brows and then Super Mario, like Peach or Daisy, yeah, I see it.
I love
So from there, I go in and I just kind of drag out my brows as thinly as possible. So that's one. And then I like to shave the ends off to kind of give it more of an arched look. And then since I did go a little thicker in here, and just kind of use the brush side to kind of push that out. So that's the basics of doing the color correcting and brows. Yeah, and then for me, one thing that Jay touched on that I think is very important to look at is definitely like looking at your family members that share the same features as you and what they do to kind of affirm themselves in their gender and stuff like that. And for me, it's definitely my mom. She always had like really thin brows and like really kind of like deep under eye makeup. Yeah, so I think it's also because she's a Scorpio and Scorpios like to kind of have a more intense gaze. So I like to mock that and kind of go in with an eyeliner, like a pencil eyeliner under the eye, like in the waterline. I think that that definitely like brings a lot of kind of intensity that I like to emit.
Yeah, putting eyeliner on the waterline, which is above your lashes, like very, very close to the eye, that effect will kind of make your eyes look a little bit smaller or define them more. So I can definitely see how that is a really nice, like feminizing technique. It looks really, really good, honestly, on anybody, but it definitely adds to that kind of like sultry effects.
Okay, so this is the eyeliner on there and just like a regular base. I am gonna go in on this eyebrow again, actually, just on the ends. Yeah, so this is how I start off with just like a base to any makeup look, essentially just to know the shape of everything that you're doing. Yeah, did you have anything that you wanted to say, Jay?
I think it's so interesting that the things that you're doing, so how you were using color corrector and you were saying like, oh, I want to hide like, any kind of cool tone from like facial hair, or I want to hide dark circles. When we're doing masculine makeup, you actually like bring these things out. So that's just a really, really good way of knowing if you're not sure how to get to that gender affirming makeup that you want, do the opposite of what you were taught or do the opposite of what you normally do. And then maybe that's like exactly what you're looking for. So yeah, it's really interesting.
Hmm. Totally agree. But yeah, so Jay mentioned that a couple of you wanted to know a little bit about like how, one would do their lips in a way that kind of, or I think that's what you mentioned, right? Like lips as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So I'm going to show you how I do my lips. Basically, what I do is I go in and kind of overline my Cupid's bow, and essentially I go in under where the lip kind of like is, you know, getting closer to the cheek. So I'm going to do that.
And if you don't have lip liner, if you have eyeliner, you could also use it on your lips. Just be careful. Maybe you want to sanitize it with alcohol whenever you're switching from the eyes to the mouth. But just be creative with your makeup. You don't need to have a product for every single step. Because I know when I started, I was just using eyeshadow for like everything. Eyeshadow could be your contour, it could be your bronzer. You could even use eyeshadow on the lips. Just be crafty, be resourceful.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, so what I like to do, especially since we're going for like a more darker feminine aesthetic today, is I wanted to do like a very dim kind of lip liner to kind of, really bring in that, yeah, like the lining of the lips. And essentially what I'm gonna do now is just go over with like a lipstick.
So basically defining the shape of your lips, right? If you don't have super full lips, it's a great, you could use your lip liner to actually go past your lip line. And then that way you can customize your lip shape, maybe get a more dramatic Cupid's bow, or round out that shape and make your lips look fuller too. So yeah, I'd never really touched upon lips in the past makeup workshops, but I've had a few people ask about that. Hopefully this is helpful.
So yeah, that is the lip that I'm doing today. Just I don't know if you can really see that, but it's just I like to draw essentially close off the Cupid's bow and go over it and then go under where my lip ends and then just really make sure that it's like blended. So just doing
Okay.
that.
So you mean you like to stay within the lip line when you're drawing the Cupid's bow? Well, you like to round it out,
I
right?
like to go out of the lip line when drawing the Cupid's bow and then go in towards the end. Because
Right.
that's like the cartoonish, like just kind of very, you know, cartoonishly pretty.
Yeah, I think that's a really good tip because for some people who try overlining their lips, you might like end up feeling like you're looking like a clown a little bit if you're going past the lip line all the way around the lips. But if you focus on going past the lip line on the center, and then as you're coming down the edges, actually go in rather than past your lip, it gives you that like juicy kind of pouty lip without looking too much. So I love how you did that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so now that I've touched on most of the basics of how I set just like a normal everyday look, essentially, like this is what I'll do. Like if I'm just going to dinner or if I'm going to the store and I'm feeling dysphoric, and just kind of really want that extra, edge to me is this is what I do like on the daily. So now that I have that out the way before I contour, I want to go into the vampire-ish look. That's what we're doing today, the theme, the vampire.
Yes. And
Oh,
I thought the vampire theme was so suitable because we are both lesbians. And for those who don't know, the vampire kind of persona actually started as like a character that's based off of lesbians and the threat that we pose to heterosexual relationships. This is something that you can learn more about. There's lots of like video essays. Exactly, Carmilla, exactly. And it's really interesting when you learn more about these like monsters and stories that we grew up learning about. A lot of queer people and a lot of trans people really relate because we are used to being othered. We're used to being seen as like freaks or not belonging. And at the end of the day, we're just being ourselves. We might be a little bit different from everybody else, or the way that we choose to live our lives and express ourselves might be threatening the status quo, but we're really not hurting anybody in the end. So, yeah, we're your vampire hosts for today.
We are your vampire host for today. And also, I think, you know, to also touch on that, I feel like I've been noticing more and more queer people saying that they find horror specifically as an escape from reality, with like gaming culture. Like, I'm not a gamer personally, but a lot of people just kind of use it as escapism, for smaller towns and stuff like that, just locking in on a horror game or horror movies because they're used to, they want to see the representation in a way subconsciously of, being othered and outcasted as well. And I think that as queer people, we can be a little bit more evil. So, yeah, I'm a huge advocate for horror, actually. So, let's start the vampiric look, if that's okay with y'all. Essentially, the way I like to start an eye look is I like to just go in with a very, very thin line, kind of where I want to kind of cut off the eye with a liner. I like to use a liquid liner because you can get like the super thin, brush, which you can't really get with felt tip. So, yeah, I'm just gonna pull this up as much as possible.
There is a question about contouring, but I will answer that when we get to that step. Shanti, you really are so quick with your makeup.
I'm so, yeah,
I don't know how
I'm
to do it.
used to running. I have like three jobs and I'll go out after. So I'm so used to doing it like either in a car or, you know, just anywhere. So since I drew like the kind of guide of where I want, the eyeshadow to cut off, what I like to do just kind of start using darker shades for the crease since I have like hooded eyes and just kind of really, bring that out. And with eyeshadow, what you need to do the most is definitely like blend it as much as possible.
And for anybody who might not know what hooded eyes are, you know you have hooded eyes if when you look forward into a mirror, this top part of your eye kind of goes over the part of your eye where your lash line is. And you'll notice if you're doing your makeup and your mirror is angled downwards, let's say you are trying to draw the perfect liner and it looks great until you look forward. And the way your eyes fold just makes your makeup come out a little bit differently. With hooded eyes, we do have to do our makeup just a certain way so that it looks the same looking straight forward and also when we look down. So I do recommend looking straight as you do your eyeliner or as you're doing your eyeshadow so you can place it high enough for it to be visible. Oh, and in the chat, we're talking about somebody said, I always identified with the monster from Frankenstein. And I said, yes, absolutely, because they came into the world against their will. They were just trying to
Oh,
learn how to connect and like understand humans, but everyone they would come in contact with would react with like disdain and disgust. I think, yeah, as queer and trans people, we get that a lot where we're really just trying to vibe. We're really just trying to make connections and find love or companionship like everybody else. But because maybe we look different or we act different, yeah, we don't always get the most positive reactions. But it's nice to kind of reclaim that otherness because if we're always going to stand out, I don't know, we might as well look fabulous while doing it.
might as well like reclaim it to full extent for sure. Like another character that I feel can be very closely compared to that would be Edward Scissorhands.
Oh yeah.
Because in that movie, you kind of see like, he was essentially just, living his own life, just kind of chilling. And then the second that they assimilated him to like their pop culture and like their role in society expectations and stuff like that, that's when everything started to go downhill for him. So, yeah, and it's just like to some extent, we're othered to the extent where we are othered in a way that it just makes us feel like total freaks. But, why not fully embody that and be a total freak all the time?
Exactly.
Okay, so for the top, essentially what I did is I went in with like a deeper burgundy eyeshadow into the crease of my eye and dragged that out. And then I added red to kind of the ends of where that is to essentially make it look more sunken in, but still red. Um, yeah. And it kind of gives it like a cherry color because you're mixing like a brownish purple and like a very deep red. And then also I like to do this angle because I feel like it, really dramatizes the eye shape and kind of makes your gaze a little bit more, intimidating. Yeah.
Yeah, it really adds a lift to the features. When you're doing more upwards diagonal application of makeup, it lifts and snatches you. So for like a more masculine look, you might not necessarily need to do that to get that effect. If anything, you can go opposite, right? Like we're kind of doing the opposite. We can go downwards and make your eyes look more downturned, and that's gonna give you a different kind of look. So I remember in a past workshop, somebody asked me, like, what do you mean by doing your makeup in a more like upward motion? And this is what we mean. Something that will kind of open and lift the feature rather than like obscuring it. That can add a little feminine touch.
Definitely most important part to mention that. Yeah, I think, given the way that everybody, or that I mentioned, some people wanting to look like cartoon characters and like their gender envy and stuff like that. I think another good model is like drag queens. Like, even if you're not as into drag as some other like people in the community, it's important to find one that you like or know about at least because you might learn some of the best makeup skills from them. Yeah, so now that I have the eyeshadow, I'm gonna go in with this blending brush and just really like blend the heck out of that so that it looks more kind of like clean and natural. Well, as natural as like a red vampiric look could get, but
What do you
yeah.
mean you woke up that way? You don't even wear
Yeah,
makeup.
I woke up like this, right?
Right.
And then now that I have like this deep kind of red situation going on, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go in with this like lighter kind of dusty kind of pink and go in on the inner corners just with my finger because I feel like that brings in the most pigment.
Yeah, I like how you're doing a lighter kind of shimmer on most of the lid, and the definition on the outer parts of your lid are like darker. This kind of effect just makes your eyelids look more open and like bigger that way. So the way that's like the opposite of what I did today, right? Like I did more of a smoky eye where the darkest colors are actually all over my lid, which makes it look more sunken in and more recessed. And I kind of blended that out to kind of match my skin tone better. Yeah, love to see it.
Yeah, so total opposite of what you did today is the assignment for this webinar, essentially. But yeah, so that is my kind of just how I do my eyeshadow in general with red incorporated. Yeah, the shimmer that I like to use is lighter than the eyeshadow because while I do want to look sunken in for this vampiric look, I do also want to look like the everlasting, like life everlasting aspect to a vampire. So I want to look, you know, like I just ate, I'm Jennifer in Jennifer's body. I just ate a boy, like very like youthful, kind of put together vibe. But to bring in the sunken in aspect, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with red eyeshadow under the eye to kind of give it like the more sick and hungry look. So I'm just tapping that on to kind of make sure it stays on there and then dragging it out. I feel like when you kind of put eyeshadow under your eyes, it does give it more of an intimidating impact, especially if it's like really, really on there. Like if you have like black eyeshadow blended out, like that's my like do not talk to me makeup. Like I'm going to the store, I'm just like very like Amy Winehouse, Alice Glass type vibe.
Yeah, makeup is armor, honestly. Even if this isn't necessarily the makeup you would personally feel comfortable wearing on a daily basis, figure out what you would want to wear and just feel how different you are after you do your makeup. I think a lot of people who aren't like super familiar with it or haven't really done a lot of makeup, it seems like a superficial thing and you might not understand like why people put so much time and effort into it. But it makes such a difference when you step out the house, knowing you control how you look, even if you can't control how other people treat you, you can, exude the vibe you want to give off that day.
Before I go into contouring, I'm just gonna finish this eye look with adding some white under my brows. I feel like, especially if you're out in the dark for Halloween, it kind of really dramatizes, the effect of the brow, of your super arched brow that you just did, because you'll take my advice when I say that arched brows are the way to go. Yeah, so that is that. But yeah, the basics of, how I model my makeup and how I view feminization is definitely, like Jay mentioned, really making it angular, kind of like how drag queens will like tape the sides of their like head and just kind of like pull it super tight. Like that is what I want to, exemplify in my makeup. But yeah, so this is the eye look, and we're gonna go into contouring. Essentially, what I do is I use this kind of, I don't know what you would call this. It's like a blushy kind of. Are we allowed to say the brand names and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically it's this milk kind of like crayon situation that you could use for like anything, like your lips. You could use it for your cheeks. You could also use it just kind of like as eyeshadow as well in a way. But I like to kind of contour with a blushier type of tool to kind of add that like pop to my use, even though gray traditionally is the way to go if you really want to add just like a natural shadow. But since it's Halloween, in spirit of that, I want to try something a little more creative. So yeah, basically what I do is I kind of see where that glow is. I don't want to touch that. I want to go like under that and just kind of like dab it on and give it like a little bit of an angular, but instead of the masculinizing way where you pull it down as well, I'm just gonna stop it like halfway.
Okay, I think this is a good time to answer the question somebody sent in earlier. They said, I can't look at my full face in a mirror for more than a minute. Any recommendations to be able to contour successfully? So, contouring is cool because you can just feel your bone structure. You can feel where your cheekbone is and think of applying your contour products on the bottom of that cheekbone If you go too low, that can kind of drag your facial features downwards and won't really give you that same effect. So you don't even have to be looking in the mirror. You can just feel with your finger, and then you can take your contour products. For this situation, I'd recommend like a cream because you can pick it up with your finger and you can just place it where you feel your cheekbone is. And then when your cheekbone ends, you can kind of bring that down towards the chin here. And with a lot of creams, they're super easy to blend out. Just use the other fingers, the other clean fingers you have to just pat that in. And then you can quickly check in the mirror to make sure there aren't any harsh lines or anything. And same thing with the forehead. Just feel for like the sides of the forehead and kind of go straight across if you're doing more of like a masculinizing contour. Same with the nose. You can just take that product and just swipe it down the nose if you want to emphasize the shape, if you want to kind of like define it more. That's a really nice way. And of course, the inner brow bone or the eye area that we talked about earlier, add that there, just tap it out, boom, contour. Ooh, okay, I love this because you're kind of doing a like you're applying a blush on the areas where you would contour, and it still looks really natural. Like, it doesn't look like it shouldn't be there.
I like to kind of model it after Lola from Shark Tale, how she has very like rosy features. And
Mm,
also, I like to look like I live in the snow at all times and just kind of like, it's freezing, so your face is turning red because of the cold. And I notice a lot of people do like to do that on their noses, just like add
mm,
a little pink to the nose. I like to do it to my cheeks because it kind of gives the effect that I'm freezing. And also, yeah, yes,
cold-blooded.
that is my look.
Wow, I love it. Thank you so much for sharing your process. I'm truly like in awe of how fast that was. Because y'all, when I have to do my makeup for these workshops, I'm like rushing on camera, like you can't tell, but I take so much time. And Shanti is like, yeah, I just do this and this. I just draw a couple lines and there you go.
Well, they also say like the less you do, the more effective the effect is and stuff like that. But I like to carry that on in terms of time because if you just kind of slap it on sometimes, just the most important thing is blending. Honestly, like if you just throw it on and just blend super quick, like super well, like really beat your face, like that will kind of give like the most effective, especially in a day-to-day aspect of just like getting your makeup done. But yeah, if you're like really overthinking it, sometimes you can be doing too much.
Hmm. Yeah, I've said it before in a past workshop, but if you're too scared to practice makeup and leave the house with what you're wearing, because maybe you don't feel confident in your makeup skills, do it before you shower. Do it before you shower. If you don't want to overthink it, give yourself like 10 minutes. Set a timer, try a different makeup look or try a certain technique, play around with a new product, see how you like it. And if you hate it, shower time. If you love it, take a picture of what you've done. So next time you can try to recreate that. And then as you keep practicing this, makeup is a skill, just like anything else. It does require practice. We have years of practice. We've done this hundreds of times, so we might make it look easy, but that is something we can all do. Is just whenever we get a chance, put on some makeup, see how we feel about it, and take it off if we don't like it.
The most important thing too is kind of bringing your friends into like asking for advice and stuff like that. I would not be where I am now without my friend support. Even if it's just like hanging out with the girlies, just like on a Tuesday evening, just like, oh, do you guys want to do each other's makeup? I think that practice and just kind of like doing that on a semi-regular basis, it's not like super important. If you don't have anybody too, like the shower is a really good example. And I'm sure Jay as well, has had like a really horrible makeup phase where we look like total clowns and go
Yes.
out with like the most confidence. But, nobody's ever gonna, judge if you're with your friends. I think that they will be like, oh, like, maybe you should try this. Like constructive criticism is something that you want. It's something that's good rather than like bad because it'll help you.
Yeah, you just described the entirety of 2016
Very
because
thick eyebrows, like cut crease,
no blush, just a lot
no
of
blush.
contour and bronzer and highlight. Like,
The highlight was crazy. Yeah.
not okay. And no one told me anything. That's the most wild part. And yeah, like for those who might not have fellow queer and trans community, that is what is so great about Plume is that we offer practice spaces. I did a practice space for makeup recently where we could just do our makeup together. And those are the kinds of times where, it's really not, you're not going to get judged for not knowing how to do something or not being like good at something. If anything, that's a chance for you to ask me for some feedback. And I am so happy to offer tips and advice because that's the hardest part, when you're just starting out, or if you're just not sure if you're doing something right, but you don't have anyone to ask, it's hard to improve and grow. So if you ever get a chance to attend a practice space with me, please come on in, bring your makeup, do it on camera. Let's share tips with each other and let's share feedback.
And also don't be afraid to look bad in your own room.
Yes.
Never be afraid to look bad in your own room.
We've all been there. I definitely have been there more than once. It makes you stronger. But yes. Was there anything else you want to share about your makeup techniques?
Yeah, just to kind of close off, my look for today, I just added like a very thin, kind of liquid liner to the look to kind of really seal it off and give the focus to the, sharpness of the eyes that I'm going for. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed if you can try to make your lines thin, it it doesn't weigh down your eyes as much, and it does kind of add to like the femininity of your makeup. Heavier, like smokier, darker makeup can come off like more masculine. Again, I don't fully buy into the dichotomy of feminine and masculine because I like to mix both for my style personally. But if you have been playing around with eyeliner and you just don't really feel like it's giving you the effect you want, try doing it a lot thinner. It really makes a big difference. And there are eyeliners out there that are extra, extra thin. There's a great one from Wet n Wild, which is a super affordable drugstore brand. I personally love this eyeliner. It's like $7, but they have a skinny version. It's a liquid eyeliner that is waterproof and it's like a pen. So I love something like that when doing a very fine tip look. But I don't know, I feel like doing graphic eyeliner works for anyone of all genders. It just looks really cool on everyone. Love it. Love it. Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Were there any questions in the chat?
I haven't seen any yet, but again, y'all, feel free to ask us. We still have some time left, so if you're like, let me think, I don't know what question I have yet, no worries. We'll be watching the Q&A for any questions that may come up. I do want to ask everybody here though, if you have had experience doing your makeup ever, and if you've found anything that does feel gender affirming for you, or if you want to try a certain technique but you haven't, what kind of help or what kind of advice can we offer? Because again, it's so hard to improve on makeup if we don't have people to talk to about it. But that's what we're here for. I'll pose that question to the chat.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so doing my waterline is pure torture. How do I make it not so bad?
Oh, you do have an answer, Shanti?
I do. Okay, so I used to hate doing my waterline. I used to like really hate it. Like it would drive me insane. I couldn't keep my eyes like looked up, like looking up or anything while kind of like it just felt like torture. But the way I started doing that is kind of, you notice how after I did essentially the waterline, I kind of went in with the eyeshadow. I think that's a very good way to kind of like mimic the techniques of, going in with the waterline without really having to do as much as you would, like as much as it feels like to do the waterline with like a liner. So I used to just go in with like a really dark, kind of thin brush, dark eyeshadow, and just kind of really,
Yeah.
not get as in there because obviously something that is sharp going towards your eye could be like really intimidating, and if you're using like a pencil, it's like I guess the fear of like the little wood shavings on there and stuff. But yeah, so that's what I would do. That's what I used to do, is starting off with eyeshadow.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I second what they said about using a really thin brush. And instead of applying it directly onto the waterline, if that part makes your eyes water or if it's like kind of scary, I recommend going in between your lashes. So
Hmm.
basically getting as close to the eye without actually going on the waterline, you'll still get that effect where you're kind of like snatching the eye and getting more definition, but you don't have to put it on the waterline because for me it doesn't even stay on anyway, so I just like don't even bother.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, someone is asking, I'm trying to figure out the best foundation for a 58-year-old. No matter what I get or how lightly I apply it, for whatever reason it seems to magnify like wrinkles or fine lines. I have really good skin without foundation, but for the canvas I need a foundation. Thoughts? Okay. So something that can help is using a primer before foundation. Some primers are the one I would recommend for this purpose is something that is going to fill in pores or fine lines. They might feel more like a velvety, like silicone texture. And that way you're kind of smoothing out the canvas even further so the makeup you put on top doesn't settle into the fine lines. And not every foundation is going to be good at this, at not like settling. But one that I know people love is the Dior foundation. There's like a hydrating version. That one is really popular amongst my more mature clients because it doesn't look like makeup. It's not cakey. It's very hydrating, and it doesn't seem to settle as much as some other ones. Shanti, do you have any suggestions?
I wish I did. No, I don't. But I second what you say about finding one that is like more pore filling.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, it might just be a lot of trial and error, but makeup stores, some of them, like Sephora, you can ask for samples there. So I would definitely see if you can talk to somebody and maybe ask somebody who looks like they would like would have the same skin concerns as you. Ask for some tips or suggestions, and they could make you like three samples you can take home and try before you purchase it. Because sometimes, someone could tell you in store, oh, I love this one, but you have different skin types or different skin concerns. So it's just good to actually get a chance to take it on a test run. Oh, interesting. Someone said for Starfleet, when I did an Android look, putting the juice from a face mask paper gave a plastic look when it dried down.
I used to
Oh,
do that actually.
how can you explain this? Like, how did you do that?
So basically, if you know how they have like different like aloe like face masks, like the Korean ones and stuff like that, if you just like don't end up washing it off, it kind of like sticks to your face. And I feel like it would be really good for like a siren look. If you just
Ooh.
kind of want the like very like plasticky, I don't know how durable it is, like if you're going out or anything, like sweating it off or anything, but definitely for photo shoots, I would do something like that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that kind of reminds me of the Pat McGrath like face. I don't know if she sells it as like a primer or it's basically like those really shiny, thin face masks that when they dry down, you could peel it off. But it
Hmm.
gives this shine that you just can't get from skincare. You can't get it from a highlight. It makes you look like a doll. It's so cool. You put it on top of your makeup. And she also has like a setting spray version of it too. So for anybody who's interested.
Hmm. Hmm. Since we have like 10 minutes left, and I don't know if I'll be here in the future, does anybody have questions for me specifically?
Yes. Come on, pick our brains. That's what we're here for.
I don't know if I got into it before or like if I even slightly mentioned it, but yeah, I've been on HRT for 5 years. I just hit my fifth year. Very exciting. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
When was the first time that you did a makeup look that felt gender affirming for you?
Okay, so the person who gave me HRT just to like try it out, which is like technically not safe, but I feel like a lot of trans people have done that before, just kind of like taking some of your friends.
This is
Uh,
alleged.
but
This
that's
is alleged just for entertainment purposes
just for, yeah,
only.
do not, this is obviously a fictional story.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I had this friend who we'd come over and play dress up a lot, and she actually, one day was like, "Oh, could I do your makeup?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." All she did was just like it really exaggerate my lip, and I've been using the same lip for the past like 6 years of like
Oh.
overlining the drop, you know the Cupid's bow and dropping into under and stuff like that. Yeah, so that's all she really did. She like fixed my eyebrows, like transformed my eyebrows, and then essentially just kind of like, gave me a little bit of a look. And it didn't even look that good, but like for me, like seeing my face for the first time, being like, I was like, oh my God. And then she also like had wigs and stuff like that. And she, let me put one on for the day. And I was like, oh my God, like this is the most affirming thing. How about you? What was the first time, especially through a masculine look,
Hmm.
finding that?
That's a good question. Like I said earlier, I like to mix more feminine and masculine elements in my makeup, just like on the daily.
Me
Um,
too.
it's just something that's like so fun about that, and it's like making a new third thing that's not feminine nor masculine. But I think one of the times when I did my makeup as Gomez Adams, and my partner was, oh my God, what's her name? What's her name? I forget.
Morticia Adams.
Patricia. I'm
Hello?
so sorry, gay people. Yes, I did my makeup as Gomez Adams, and I was just like, "Oh, who's that?" Like, wait. And it's funny because I haven't really played around with masculine makeup too much until more recently with Plume, actually. But it's so fun to transform yourself, even if you're not doing a full face. Like Shanti said, even if you just do lips or you play around with like your eyes only, it can make you see yourself in a way you never thought you could, and it really opens doors for self-expression and what, yeah, your gender. So that was definitely a big standout moment for me in my makeup journey. Even though I've been doing makeup for over half my life, I never really played around with like adding a more masculine contour or anything, and like making my brows more bold and dramatic, but I loved it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that the most important things ever are definitely like the mouth area and your eyebrows. That is like something that could make or break sometimes, like in your own dysphoric mind, like, oh, like I look like horrible right now, and then you just pluck your eyebrows or you kind of like fill them in more to like make them more angular and then everything's okay. Sometimes like just throwing on a lipstick, and like, either letting your facial hair grow or kind of like drawing it on or shaving it off or completely hiding it. To each their own, but I feel like in a dysphoric headspace, I think that's usually what makes or breaks a lot of this too.
I want to ask Lena if you have a time where you've done like gender affirming makeup or anything.
Ooh, well, there was this time in college where my girlfriend at the time did my makeup. And this was back when I had long, pretty blonde hair before Mother Nature took it away from me because she's transphobic. And I remember looking at that and just thinking like, oh my goodness, who's that? And then, yeah, It took me a couple of years to figure out what was going on in that moment for me, but that's what comes to mind. I do have a question for y'all. So, I think bald femmes are like super cute. And I'm curious if you have any tips for feminizing makeup specifically for folks who like can't frame their face with hair, like bald folks. Like, is there anything extra we can do to help feminize like a bald head?
I've seen people put makeup on their head
Yeah.
or like eyeliner that literally goes all the way up.
Hmm.
Just fully going like John Waters divine for sure. Maybe, okay, like on a real sense, maybe just kind of using the brow space that you actually have, because sometimes I just want to give myself like a little skullet or something just so I have like, crazier brows or something. But I think you'll have more of a privilege, especially because bald heads for femmes specifically, or for anybody, it's just so chic and so like clean looking. And I feel like it's like one less thing to worry about rather
Mhm.
than like something to kind of not celebrate.
I miss my pretty hair, but I don't miss the work that went into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, now it's just like every 3 days I just shave it clean and it's like I don't have to think about it. But yeah, I like the idea of playing around more with brows and like doing something more dramatic.
Especially because you have like, I don't remember correctly, but did you have shaved brows?
They're like shaved but like a week grown in right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because with shaved brows and a bald head, you could do so much with just like blush over the eyelids and kind of really like with like glitter that is like super close to the kind of skin tone, just like fully like drag queen it out. That's what I would do. I've shaved my head before and like also my brows and have like, done that myself. And I think it's just like so much fun to do that.
Cool. I'm feeling inspired now. I think I know what I'm
Love
gonna
to
do when
see.
I
Please
look
show us anything you try out.
Ooh. Now, when you mention that, now it feels scary again, but gonna lean into it. Yeah. Well, we can put out a last call for questions, or we can start moving into like the sort of closing announcements and that sort of stuff. We do have plenty of time if there are any more questions.
Something else you can do too, Lena. I feel like Neo Huru, she's a drag queen. Love her. Super, super cool and futuristic. I'm pretty sure I've seen her like put on hair extensions, like
Hmm.
just like two strips. And because she has a skullet, so imagine like my hair, but shaved in the front, right? I think that is such a cute look. And I think it would go with your whole like aesthetic too.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you. That would be so fun. Yeah, and Neo's an icon.
She's so cool. Love her.
Yeah, like I don't know, season 5 of Dragula ruined the rest of the show for me because it was just like peak.
Downhill.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be fun. That would be fun. Hmm.
I think that honestly, in my opinion, bald heads could be more chic than having hair.
Mhm.
Like, that's just my opinion. Like, from what I've experienced, like, hair is just so overstimulating and overwhelming. It's like one little wrong thought, your entire day is like over.
Yeah, I like this Q&A. This is my favorite Q&A session ever.